Welcome back to Daijin Survivalist. We're gonna go over a little over prep over some of the chaga. This time I had a lot to harvest, so I wanted to show you guys how much I got, but also I left about half on the tree because I haven't harvested it since beginning of the year. This came off of one tree and this came off of the other tree. So pretty decent harvest. Again, you can see the graining and the veins from the inside of the material versus the outside of the material. It's how you identify it when you know it's not just some random piece of bark. So I brushed and cleaned these. I sprayed them in the sink and I brushed with a good stiff brush in all the cavities, and then I let it dry. So this is pretty lightweight and dry. Then I come over here. I use a towel. You can use a cutting board if you're on a counter outside or inside, but you don't want to smash your countertop. So I come out on my nice rigid concrete step here. I kind of use this to catch the pieces. When you're smashing, pieces will just start flying everywhere. So I use this, just a rag towel, and smash it up. Now, depending on the size of your next processing unit, depends on the size you're going to break it down to. I have a coffee grinder, so it's used to grinding things the size of coffee beans. So I want to get most of my pieces down to roughly this size. This stuff is probably a little too big for my coffee grinder. I got this little tiny one that's like this big. It's like a little pillar, and it's got a little 1 cup measuring cup. You just push on it and it kind of, so these pieces could get stuck in there. I tend to try to go down to this size. So fast forward to the rest. I'll fast forward this last part where we grind it all up. All right, let's take this to the kitchen. Welcome back. We're back in the kitchen. You can see all the pieces that got broken up. We're going to, like I said, I had this nice little blender, coffee blender, and as you can see, the product I ground down to about the size of coffee grain. It's got a lot of dust in it, but that's all right. So you can see coffee grain size pieces, because through the process of tincture versus basically like a tea is kind of what you're going for. Is I try to combine the cold with the hot without damaging one product or the other, because there's a lot of controversy that heating this stuff up, you can break down and destroy some beneficial compounds if it gets over a certain temp, over 140, over 160. You start breaking down some of the antioxidants or other properties. I'm not 100% on all of it, so I just do my best to do the best of what I can get out of each. So to begin with, I ground it down and I actually steep it in a alcohol in order to pull out as many compounds as I can in the cold process. This is a simple, I usually prefer grain alcohol. This is just a cheap vodka that I have. It's only, unfortunately, 40% alcohol. My favorite product is a Graves, like the Grave alcohol. It's a grain alcohol. I believe it's like 180. It's a red label. Looks almost exactly red label, plastic bottle like this, but it says Graves. It's hard to come across up here in the Northeast. Since COVID went away, they kind of slowed down production or something. I don't know. You can look it up online. It's sweet and it's high proof, and it gave like no headache alcohols. It was really good, clean stuff. But this is all I could get a hold of. So I'll steep this in alcohol for a couple days, where I just float it in alcohol as much as I can. And I'll keep it in a jar as much as I can with all the solids, you know, just like that in the jar. For now, I'm kind of just showing you the process. So we're going to skip ahead. We're going to show you how, if this was done steeping for, say, a couple weeks even, as long as you can, I'll strain that alcohol. So now that this has been steeping for weeks, you get all of the beneficial compounds that you could get out of it without heating it. And you keep that in your jar. Now, over here, you can use distilled water, regular water, RO water. I typically use RO water. And I'll boil that down. I wouldn't even say boil. I keep it really low, where the water's barely moving and you see just a little bit of steam coming off. It's got to be close to just like 130, 140 degrees. Really, it takes all day just to get that water level down reduced. So sometimes even 2 days just to really get that water level down. And that's my first wash. So my first wash will come out pretty brown, and I try to get it to where it'll only come up to about here on the jar. So my first wash, I'll boil down, I'll strain it, I'll pour it in. And for instance, again, just for show, I'll get my first wash and try to leave room in the jar for my second wash. Now, all of the solids that came out of the first wash, I'll take and I'll boil it a second time. I'll second wash it, and you can get a lot of color out of that second wash again. So reheating and recooking your solids 2, 3, 4 times, and just reduce it more. And as I go to the third and fourth wash, I'll just boil it. I'll just straight up give me as quick as possible, as much, really extract everything I can out of it down to a little bit of liquid, and then I add that to my jar. So now my final product becomes the cold alcohol with all of the hot washed product. So now the alcohol acts as a preservative, keeps any kind of microbacteria junk from heating in there, plus everything that's been heated kind of helps preserve your product. So when you jar it up, it's gonna last in the cabinet that you store it in. I prefer out of the sunlight in a temperature controlled area, of course, but having alcohol and boiled product, plus chaga, I've noticed if you're into kombucha and stuff, if you put a little bit of your chaga in your kombucha, it will straight up kill that kombucha dead. Like, you could have the healthiest kombucha, bacteria, yeast, and everything in there, it's dead within like a day. So this stuff's got some really great antibiotic, antioxidant properties that really kill stuff. So it's preserved pretty good in the jar. So this is the final product. You can see this is a batch that kind of, you can get as many of the sediments out as you can, but you get a pretty dark product, and it smells. It's strong stuff. So I try to really condense the product as much as possible. And I'll just take a swig of this every day or two. I'm not one of those, too crazy of a health nut, but it's great to have for when I'm sick, when I have issues and I just don't feel good and I really kind of just want a little boost to the immune system. So that's about the whole process, guys. Again, I tried to really just rush through it. You get a good idea of it, and happy hunting.